Hey everybody, Dan Ward back again with another video for you. Today we're going to talk about experiments. Specifically, let's take a look at what an experiment is, why we do them, and then a few words about how. Okay, we'll start with the what. In keeping with my preference for short, simple definitions, I like to define an experiment as an intervention followed by an observation. And this word intervention just means to change something. We might add something or take something out. We might swap or replace or rearrange the order of things. But if all we do is make a change, we haven't really done an experiment yet. Because you see, an experiment also requires an observation of some kind. This is where we take a measurement. We collect some data. We do an assessment to figure out the impact of the change. Did our change make things go faster or slower? Did it make things better or make them worse? Did it improve some dimension we care about in some measurable way? And then, once we've made a change and measured the consequence of that change, we can use that data to shape our next experiment. Because experiments are like potato chips. We almost never have just one. The idea is to do an incremental, iterative series where the results of one experiment help determine the design of the next. Speaking of which, Dave Alberts and Richard Hayes wrote a pretty nifty little book titled Campaigns of Experiments. They make the case for launching a series of small, restrained, inexpensive experiments. I recommend reading it. But even if you don't get through the whole book, I hope you'll at least get to page 3, where they say this. Basically, if you try to do too much, your experiment won't be worth much. Their point is, packing too much into a single experiment is probably going to be a big waste. So keep each experiment short, focused, simple. Minimize the number of things you're changing at any given time. Ideally, only change one thing at a time. Then use each experiment as a stepping stone for the next one. So why do we do experiments? Interestingly, the point of experimentation is not to make things better. It's not about improving things. No, the point of an experiment is to learn, to generate some data that we can reflect on, data we can use when we make decisions. That means if we learn something from the experiment, then it's a success. Even if it doesn't give us the results or the improvement or even the data that we hoped for. The only failed experiment is one we don't learn from. And on that note, we'll end with this brilliant advice from Amy Whitaker in her terrific book, Art Thinking. As you design and perform experiments, focus on curiosity, on learning, more than on correctness or getting it right. This doesn't mean to be sloppy with our experimental methods. No, we can still be very precise and disciplined. I think she's saying there's a direct relationship between curiosity and learning. And if we're not willing to let things get a little wrong sometimes, we won't get the full benefit of this thing called experimentation.